Okay, there we go. And I'll admit.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Casey.
I can't hear you for some reason.
Oh, sorry. Should be able to.
I can hear you, Ann.
Yeah, no, I
Sorry,
know.
it was my fault. How's it going?
It goes well. How about for you?
Good. It's been a minute, a few years now.
Yeah, how's graduate school?
It's good. It's busy. I'm in a year in, and I have one more year left. And yeah, I'm already pretty tired, but you know what? I'm learning a lot. Yeah, it was like a condensed program. So it went from 3 to 2 years. So there's like no real breaks, but
Yeah.
I'm getting through it and it's worth
There
it.
you go. There you go.
Mm.
Hey, everybody, we're just waiting for Hal. I expect him any minute. Just let me
Cool.
make sure he's got, sometimes he loses the Zoom link. I'm just gonna mute myself.
Rahel, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. So, are you still coming down to Providence tomorrow? By the way.
Yeah, I'm still gonna come down. Yeah.
Because Ajit said that tomorrow might not be a good day actually. So yeah. What's your time schedule like? Sorry to discuss this.
I can be flexible. I didn't figure out a time with the person I'm meeting up with. But I assume that could be in the afternoon. I could come on the morning side. I am post call today, so I am exhausted and will probably sleep a lot tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah. I could probably get there by like 11 or something.
Okay. So I have a class until 11:30. Anyway, just text me in the morning.
Yeah, does that work? So after 11:30?
Yeah, just yeah.
Cool.
Sorry.
See, Chris.
The old bonds of contemplative studies stay.
We met when I was a first year.
Okay.
In some of Hal's classes.
Nice. Are you both at Brown now or graduating or what?
Oh no, like 2009.
Oh, okay, cool, sweet. Way before me then.
We can't hear you, Chris.
Henry, wow, it's been a minute. How are you? Can't hear you.
Hello.
There's that voice.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Cool.
Casey,
hello, everyone.
Henry and I, we graduated the same year, right?
2017. Yeah.
2017. Yeah.
Nice. I was meant to be 2016, but
Right. That's right.
You both went to Japan together, right?
Yeah.
Well, not together, but in the group. Yeah.
Yeah. And we also had a lot of classes together my senior year, our senior year.
Yeah.
Are you back in England or in the States?
Yeah, I've been in the UK since 4 years now, which is wild. 4 years is crazy. A lot of different stuff. But yeah, don't want to take up too much. What about you? What have you
I'm getting a master's in clinical mental health counseling.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where are you doing that?
University of San Diego.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
The ISCS hit you well then. You want to stay in San Diego.
Oh yeah, literally. That's so funny. Yeah, we went on a trip to the contemplative studies like summit. I forget the name of it exactly, but the Mind and Life Institute, right?
Yeah.
Srini and I, we got dinner there.
Oh, really?
One.
Yeah. I played at that one.
Yeah, I remember you played at that one, Srini. Yeah.
You play the sitar?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember watching you. That's amazing. That's funny. It's been a minute.
Huge event.
Hmm?
That was a huge event.
Yeah, that was so cool.
Well, what was the other meeting? The neuroscience thing or something? Rahel was like also like right next door in San Diego.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't remember how that played out for me. I don't think I could have made it to either of those sessions, right? I would have remembered seeing you there. I think I had something with the other. It was the same time as the Society for Neuroscience conference where I was presenting. They did that very intentionally, I think. Sandeep.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
Okay.
Looking good.
Long time no see, some of you.
Yeah.
All of you.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I don't have my video on. I'm currently in the car, so it's kind of spotty Wi-Fi, but we just moved my sister into college, so hence the car sounds.
Hey, Kylie.
Hi. Casey, I didn't realize that you majored or concentrated in contemplative studies.
Yeah, I doubled, and I kind of like added it mostly my senior year. So it was like,
With
that's probably
environmental
why.
science?
Huh?
With environmental science?
No, I switched. I decided to study psychology instead, and now I'm pursuing a master's in clinical mental health counseling. So yeah, it's a nice little mixture of contemplative and.
Dude, I'm
Classic
literally
Brown.
doing the same thing. I'm going, like, I just applied to grad school for a counseling program.
Oh, where at?
Naropa.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I applied to
Wow.
Naropa as well. I'm at USD right now though. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's really funny. It's very similar
Hi,
paths.
Hal.
Professor
Yeah.
Roth.
Buddy, Casey, long time no see. Sandeep, great to see you. Chris, I barely recognize you. You look
Can
old.
people hear me right
Yeah.
now?
Yes. Now
Oh,
we
you can hear me now. Oh, good. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm
Hello.
Chris.
See
Yeah.
you, Henry. Really long
Hello.
time no see.
Yeah,
Great to
4
see you,
years.
man.
You too.
Yeah, 4 years. Right.
This is growing out a bit. It's
Uh,
just
Same
the
with you,
moustache when
Henry.
I last saw you, I think. Yeah, I know. I had it like
yeah,
pretty.
this might actually stay. I mean, this was my COVID beard, and
Yeah, right. Lockdown. Lockdown locks.
COVID's not over again. Yet.
It's not.
So we'll see.
It
How
looks
are
good.
how are things in England?
Things are okay. You know, lockdowns have been pretty severe and disruptive. But yeah, things are ticking along. It looks like we're on the back end now because we vaccinated very kind of vaccines program has been really successful here, I think. So yeah, hopefully moving out of it. But as you say, it's still going and it's not going to go away for a long time, I don't think.
No, India, it's particularly bad now.
Yeah.
So has everybody done mutual introductions?
Somewhat.
Nope. Somewhat. So let's see, classes. Let's see if I can guess your classes. So Raheel is 2013 and Chris is 2012. Sandeep is 2012. I know that because you two took me out to the GCB for a drink about a month before. And Casey's 2017. And Kylie is 2020.5.
Good job. Yeah.
Caitlin is 2020. Henry's 2017 as well.
Yeah.
And Srini is 1998. Anne is before they started counting, I think.
1979.
There we go.
A double concentration in classics and religious studies. Yeah.
Love it.
That old, it happens.
I'm impressed with your
I was
memory.
even older.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
1929, is that what you said?
When did you graduate from Princeton, Hal?
A few years maybe before you
Uh-huh.
graduated. A year or two. Looks like Indy is arriving. Indy is class of 2011, I think. Right, Indy?
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I'm a little late and still sort of getting organized here. But nice to be here. Nice to see everyone.
See you, man. So those of you who are closer in time, like Sandeep and Chris and Raheel know Indy, right?
Yeah, hey, Andy.
Hey, Andy.
Hello.
I love the picture of long
Hey,
hair and
crew.
beards that have been happening.
Hey, Crispy Oats.
What's up, Andy?
I'm
So
arranging
let's
better
check
lighting
in
here.
where everybody is. Like I kind of know where most of you are, but you know, students, especially right after they graduate, move around a lot. So, like for example, I'm not quite sure. Raheel, are you in Cambridge or Boston?
Yeah, Cambridge, Somerville area.
And Chris also?
I'm also in Somerville. So Raheel, we'll have to talk about that. I'm doing teaching right now. I mostly teach like math and Latin, weirdly enough.
Awesome.
So yeah,
That's
I went to Thailand for because some of you I have literally not seen in like 10 years, so, or like 9 years or something. I went to Thailand and then was in Thailand for several years, learned Thai while I was there, came back, tried to become a translator, found out I don't like being a translator, and now I mostly just do teaching other things. So very collapsed summary of like a decade of my life.
Who are you teaching?
Mostly high schoolers and college students. I teach a little bit in school and then do a lot of tutoring. So I do a lot of art, painting, drawing.
And Sandeep, you're in Baltimore, no?
Yep, I'm a psychiatrist and I'm doing psychedelic research.
Are you at Hopkins?
I'm at Hopkins.
Okay, actually, my roommate's mom is the lead facilitator for the psychedelic studies. I'm forgetting her full
Mary?
name. Huh?
Mary?
I think so, yeah. Do you
Oh,
work
wow.
with her?
Yes, I work with Mary all the time.
That's so funny. Tell her Casey says hi. I'm Paul's roommate.
Paul, okay.
Yeah, I'm also like really intrigued. Like I kind of want to, I want to pursue that kind of work in the future with psychedelics and different types of assisted facility or therapies. So love to connect.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just like was like, that's the wildest connection if you actually I work with her. That's really cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time with Mary lately. So it's cool. I'll definitely tell her.
Is it Mary Reichert, the last name?
Cosimo.
Oh, yep. She didn't take her husband's name. Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, and Kylie, have you told people what your interest is?
Yes, I'm also interested in psychedelic assisted therapy. And coming at it like from a very spiritual point of view, like the science and the neuroscience of it is like fascinating to me. But like what feels like most true to me is like to approach it kind of almost like with the animist perspective. And working with like plant medicine in that way, that's what I'm pretty excited to try to do. But the clinical research is also like fascinating, of course, because well, that's how it's
awesome. Kylie, we should definitely chat too.
I know, Casey, how that like the Casey. So I knew Casey from my freshman year at Brown because I originally started in 2013 and then took a 3.5-year break. So Casey and I went to a Celtics game together. That's like,
oh my gosh, I forgot about that. Yeah, we were on the like floor seats. We just happened upon some floor seats.
We missed spring weekend for that. I remember it was like Chance the Rapper or like Celtics courtside tickets, and I was like,
oh, good times.
Yeah, that's so funny.
So let's see. Juan has just joined us, and Micah and a young person have just joined us. So welcome to you both, all three of you. So let's see. So we're doing like I'm trying to introduce people to one another without being repetitive. So I'll be the one who's repetitive. So Micah, you know a lot of this range of people, probably from Indy, who's like at kind of early in you're 2013, right? Micah? Yeah, Micah's 2013, right? Same with you, Rahil?
Yeah.
So Rahil is here and Chris is here and Sandeep and Indy and Juan. So you're right in the middle. So
who's your friend?
So who's this young person you'd like to introduce us to?
Oh, this is Asa. This is my son, Asa.
Hey,
He'll be
Asa.
2 in June. Asa, can you say hi to everybody? I don't know how long we're going to last. He thought maybe we were about to like watch Daniel Tiger, but instead we're Zooming.
Yeah, much more boring. So Micah, you're out on Martha's Vineyard, right?
Yeah. This is
lovely.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
It's good to see you guys.
East Coast is really beautiful today. It's great to see you, Micah. And Juan, you're in Cambridge?
Hey, sorry, I stepped away for a second. My siblings singing in the next room, and I was telling them, I love the energy, but everyone, if you want everybody to hear you, that's cool. Yeah, I moved back to Boston. I'm actually in Roxbury as of February.
In Roxbury.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, good to see everyone.
A lot of you are in Boston, in the Boston area. So you're Raheel, Chris, well, one. Not that many, some of you. So Indy, what's up in Philly?
Hey everyone, it's so nice to see everyone. I feel like this is a lot of people that I recognize, and also nice to meet the new people that I don't know. My name's Indy. Like Hal said, I'm class of 2011. I did contemplative studies and music, and basically the way I kind of tell people is that I did music, multimedia, and consciousness. And I work in Philly doing just that. Talking about psychedelic research, I'm also tangentially involved in one of the, tangentially, but part of the extended crew of one of the first psychedelic assisted PTSD clinics in the country that are starting up here. And it's a very interesting process. It's complicated to, just do everything that some of you were talking about in terms of looking at it ethically and looking at it in terms of where it's coming from and how to make sure that you're bringing all the entire context and power of it. So I appreciate all you talking about that. Besides that, I teach as well. I teach high school, I teach media and music, but in various different contexts. I've actually just started working in Philadelphia's school district to launch the city's first CTE program, which is Career and Technical Education in Music Production and Media, which is really cool because it's 3 years. So even though it's a music class, I get to talk about whatever I want. So far we just talked about like brain science and economic systems. Like this is where you do it in music, because that's where I found it, contemplative studies in music. Yeah, and besides that, I am a media creator, so I do kind of filmmaking. I've worked on some documentaries, and I do web design and other stuff for nonprofits and other arts organizations and artists. I think that's most of it. Nice to be here. Nice to see everyone, especially hi, Asa. Welcome to your first contemplative studies meeting, but hopefully not the last.
Hi, Asa. Henry, it's probably really late for you there. I'm thinking is it 5 hours? Are you pushing 11?
Yeah, 10 to 11. Yeah. 10:50.
So you've also been doing teaching?
Yeah, teaching meditation. Actually, I got I'm sure there are several, but I got a qualification from the British School of Meditation. So been teaching meditation, and pretty much at exactly the same time that I got that qualification, I qualified as a hockey coach as well. So teach field hockey out here to adults and kids at a club that my dad's actually been a part of for 40 years now. So obviously all of that pretty much got shut down by COVID, especially the hockey was just completely, the season was just written off, which is a shame. But I've also been, so my dad's a farmer, so I luckily I can work on the farm. I would show you out my window, but obviously it is nighttime. But we've got nice fields out there that I do lots of kind of tractor work and stuff on. But also, speaking of psychedelics, it's interesting that there's a link between several of us on that front. I actually was on a Zoom call yesterday, which was a careers in psychedelics data science, basically. So guys from MAPS, guys from kind of the cannabis industry, which is obviously slightly different over here because it's a countrywide ruling. It's still technically illegal, but medical cannabis is kind of making its way in. So that was really interesting. I don't know if I could just share any of the info to you guys. There wasn't that much info. It was very much to do with the data science part of it. So obviously I think more people here, kind of Indy, Kylie, and Casey, have more on the therapeutic side. But they did have, or maybe, I don't know, I could drop a link to Anne or something. She could send it on, some of the info that they left in there. But that's kind of the stuff that I've been doing, teaching meditation and teaching hockey.
Cool.
Yeah, but yes, it is late. Time difference and all that. Is anyone else not in the States or is everyone else?
I think everybody right now is in the States.
Mhm.
I'm looking around. Casey, you're in Arizona, right?
No, I'm in San Diego. I moved here a year and a half ago.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
I knew that, right.
Henry was like pointing out that I was drawn back after the Mind and Life conference, and I didn't realize there was probably that connection there. But I grew up in Arizona and then came here a lot as a kid for like family vacations. So I've always loved it. It's closer to home. And I'm doing a master's and I'm like a year in. So I have one more year left and it's in clinical mental health counseling. And then, yeah, eventually I want to pursue being a therapist for psychedelic facilitated therapies. But I just now kind of realized this after having like my own experiences, which I can disclose now that I'm graduate, like, don't feel like I have to share that. Not that you haven't shared yours, Hal. But yeah, so the profound impact it's had on my life is what's kind of leading me to want to pursue this kind of healing in other people's lives as well. And so, yeah, I'm just curious to learn more. And yeah, if anybody has any sort of like guidance or recommendations, I'd appreciate it.
Well, we will hopefully soon be joined, at least briefly, by the person who is putting that clinic together that Indy is working with.
Cool.
Hannah McLean, who was a medical student here, but was in our contemplative studies medical program. Before we had a contemplative studies program on campus, the medical school had a scholarly concentration in contemplative studies. And in those days, we were able to do things like send Hannah to Nepal for 10 weeks to practice in a Dzogchen convent. That doesn't happen anymore. But anyway, so Hannah McLean is the kind of force of nature behind this particular clinic, which is being built right on the edges of, it's basically built already on the edges of she's rehabbed a building. She got very good at this because Hannah went through medical school and she never went to a lecture. Sandeep will appreciate this. She just lecture. She watched them at night. So she stayed up. She started watching them about midnight. She'd get a little bit of sleep, and then she'd go out and she bought a couple of houses in South Providence and she fixed them up and sold them. So she developed her contracting and construction skills. Now she's applied them she was able to raise the funds to buy a building, a former medical building on the edge of the University of Pennsylvania campus. And she's been rehabbing it herself into a series of rooms to set up this first clinic for MDMA for people with PTSD. And Indy, correct me if I'm wrong, but she's pretty much hired a lot of staff already. So once MDMA becomes legal to use, then she's opening the doors.
Yeah, I'm not totally I'm not working with them so much as, without going into personal stuff, just connected with people in it. So they were pretty much ready to open this year. It was just COVID kind of put them on a hold, and the building's mostly done. There are certain things that they still need to do, but it's like approved and ready to go and all that.
Also, we may be joined by Katie Eastburn from Srini's class of '98, and they went to Nepal and to Tibet together on the SIT program, was it?
Yeah.
And Katie's now a psychiatric nurse, and she's working in the New York University has a brand new psychedelic therapy clinic. It's part of the NYU medical school system. So. Henry's put a link in the chat that might be helpful.
Yeah. So that's the organization that ran this talk that I was on. And as I said, that the talk won't be up for, they said potentially a couple of months because they're very busy with various things. But it was really interesting, and they've got talks with like Gabor Mate and Professor David Nutt, who are pretty significant figures in the field. So it's definitely cool. As I said, I don't know how relevant it will be, but it could be useful.
Thanks, Henry. Chris made a helpful suggestion to catch everybody up on what's been going on with contemplative studies, especially for those who've been kind of out of the loop, which is certainly understandable. So we became a formal concentration in we were approved in May of 2014. And after the draft of the proposal went through about 40 different drafts, and a lot of banging around and back and forth, and we signed up our first official concentrator in September. That was Henry. Henry was the first official concentrator, and Casey was also in Henry's class. Actually, we both graduated in 2017, right?
Yeah, Henry, you switched to my class, right? He was a year
Yes,
before
I was
us.
meant to be 2016. I had a fairly significant concussion and had to take a medical leave for a year, basically.
Right.
Yeah, so not one of the first to graduate, but yeah, I've always got that little thing.
But
A
you
little
were the
claim to
first to
fame.
sign up. You were the first to sign up.
Yeah, I actually, so what was that website called? I can't remember, but you had to select your concentration. But when I went to do it, and it had been approved, and Hal had done all this amazing work, but it had been approved, but it wasn't actually on the system yet. So I had to contact the IT department at Brown and be like, hey, can you actually make me able to select it? So that was pretty cool.
And let's see, since then, we've graduated 41 students with official concentrations. And let's see, what else to say? And so we built this really interesting collection of courses through, I've been able to raise funds externally, mostly through external funding, to hire people like Srini, Larson Di Fiore, Willoughby Britton, and Jared Lindahl teach a couple courses, Meditation in the Brain, and Me, Myself, I, Theories of Self and Buddhism and Science. Sarah Lazar teaches Cognitive Neuroscience and Meditation. Srini's got a really interesting collection of courses that he teaches. Maybe Srini, you can talk about them a little bit. And we continue to persist despite strong headwinds that we're always sailing into. The most recent of which is the fact that with the new mindfulness center, so maybe people don't know, but John Kabat-Zinn's MBSR center from UMass Worcester, most of it has moved to Brown. And so there's a new mindfulness center at Brown that certainly we work somewhat in together with. A couple of the people who teach in that and do research in that center, Eric Laux and Judson Brewer, are also part of our core faculty. One of the unfortunate things that's happened, though, is that when potential donors now come to Brown with interests that would have been directed to contemplative studies previously, they get shunted to the Mindfulness Center because Brown laid out a lot of money to bring the Mindfulness Center in. So we're not directly benefiting from that. So we're still working out what our relationship is. We've been able to, since you guys were here, I mean, so once and when did you start? You started in 2015?
Yeah, it's about 7 years ago, actually. So yeah, 2015, 2014. I think it was actually 2014. It was like December, and then it turned to 2015.
Right. So so we brought Ann in half-time at first, and then we got Brown to pay for a little bit more, and now we've been able to fund Ann completely, even though Ann's worked full-time ever since she got here. And Ann, of course, has been, the invisible glue that holds everything together. I come up with some wacky idea and I say to Ann, is this possible? She says, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. So we just had a lovely virtual commencement evening on Thursday, where we graduated 11 students, or we gave them, well, we just allowed them to come together because Brown is doing this weird thing this year where you all know this, there's going to be hopefully maybe the only year that there will be 3 semesters. So there's a 3rd semester that starts on May 12th. So we're done. I mean, commencement was this weekend, obviously 3 to 4 weeks earlier than all of you experienced.
Wait, Professor Roth, it is this weekend because I mean, I'm graduating tomorrow, so it still hasn't happened yet.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, we gave you,
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I know, I'm like, everyone's like, I have nothing to compare it to because I actually haven't graduated yet. So I'm like, this is the norm for me. So when you're like, it's different this year, I actually don't know what you're referring to.
It's always Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
And for years, it was actually, right, it was on Memorial Day, not on the Sunday.
It was on Memorial Day. It was on the Monday. Then they changed it later, but yes, that was the tradition always.
So let's see, how far
At
back?
At least around my year, I think it was on the Sunday, and it was like a saving grace that Memorial Day was off.
Right.
Yeah, Indy, how about your year? Was it on Sunday or Monday?
I can't remember. Sunday, I'm sure. Yeah, because it was like Saturday was something, and then Sunday was something else. That was it.
That's usually how my weekends go.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like, I'm probably one of the people who would have probably preferred this year. I'm really happy to just spend my 10-year reunion just in this call with y'all and avoid the questions of why I'm not going. So I'm sure it's gonna be normal. Kylie.
Jeez. Yeah, that's right. 10 years. Srini, can you talk about courses that you're teaching or what you're doing?
Yeah. Well, we just wrapped up the 3rd installation of music and meditation, which has really become like a hit class. In fact, I was out this morning and I saw a student from 3 years ago, and she was like, and we definitely like recognized each other, and she was like, I was in your class, and I was like, oh yeah. And, I couldn't believe that. I mean, they still remember everything from class. It's great. So anyway, yeah, music and meditation is a really fun class. But the weird thing with this semester is like now I'm teaching again in like a week or so. Like the summer semester starts, which kind of, you need a little break. I mean, teaching, I find it to be like very like energizing and fun, but there's this like weight that's on you the whole time, like when you're like holding a class, you know what I mean? And until like the final grades are in, you're not free from that weight. And like, it's good to have that weight off for a little bit. But anyway, summer is Saints and Mystics of India, which is a really cool class. The only other time I taught this class, it only had 3 students, which is great. We have 8 students right now, which is actually will be good. And it's to be chill, like the summer vibe, I think will still hold. So that'll be great. And then in the fall, it's 2 classes. It's Love and War in India, which is a class I've taught a few times also. That's been really great. And then a new class called Contemplation and Social Activism, which is like super awesome. And it's really like the key thing that everyone wants to talk about, which is what we end up talking about in every one of my classes anyway, whether it's the music class or the mystical saints or Casey, yes, you can take it. And for me too, like just the big theme in the class will be, kind of like the civil rights movement and the Indian independence movement and the kind of themes and kind of political strategies that were going on, and the intimate connection actually between both of those movements. And we're going to read Isabel Wilkerson's book, which is really good. If you haven't read it yet, I'd highly recommend it. Cast. So anyway, that's what I'm up to.
Srini, if you ever want to, I feel like I remember you had mentioned that class at the SRI last year. I mentioned,
yeah, it's finally happening.
Yeah, cool. I think I've heard you guys talking about it for a while. I would definitely love to, if you ever want some.
You want to do a guest lecture?
Yeah, have Rahul come too.
Okay.
I would, yeah. So Juan and I talked about this actually recently. He came over and it was, yeah, I of course would love to, you know that.
And you guys are both in Cambridge or whatever?
Yeah.
Somerville, Roxbury. Yeah. Our middle point is Cambridge.
I mean, if you could be together and do it, that would be great. I mean, it doesn't really matter with this whole thing, but
yeah, we could probably tap into like the, what does that stuff look like today?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Contemporary
we
outlook,
both, yeah.
Perspectives from wise old masters who have passed through the hallowed halls before thee.
Do any of y'all know Rob Ames, who also did his undergrad at Brown? He just wrote a book on social and civic activism in the Sufi world, which is apparently continually pushed out of the narrative. So I'll send that to you guys too.
Yeah.
I've heard that narrative before, and I've always wanted to give me details. Like, what's the juice of this? Like beyond just
I don't know yet. So I just saw that he posted the book, so I'll send it to you.
Amazing. And I've heard it framed just like engaged Buddhism. It's like, yes, you like open up to the absolute, then come back to the relative. The only thing to do is like relieve suffering, and that applying in the same Sufi framework.
Man, I missed you guys in this contemplative studies event on law, race, and mindfulness a few weeks ago.
Rhonda?
It was really great. Say again?
Rhonda McGee stuff?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure you guys are.
Rhonda was here, or was there.
But that was really good in terms of just framing it for various people in the room, being like, just to be conscious of exactly what you're talking about, being like, none of these practices have been about self-improvement and like productivity, and we got to be careful how we translate them.
Right.
They're about like equity and social justice.
So Rahil and Micah, weren't you both in the first socially engaged Buddhism, and maybe Sandeep, were you in that?
I was in the class.
Engaged Buddhism, and Crispy Oats was there too.
Crispy, you're in that.
Oh yeah.
In that. Yeah, so that was a first iteration. Difficult course to teach, but I think Micah and Rahil, you were freshmen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We just had to like convince you to let us take it.
And like no, you can't do this. Okay, fine. Read like some Rupert Gathen and some, what was the other guy, the Mitchell something. You had to read these 2 intro to Buddhism books, and like, we're gonna test you. I'm gonna quiz you when you come back, and you did, and you let us take the course. But or at least that's what he did to me. I don't know what he did to you, Micah.
Yeah, it's like that. But it was a great class. I think I still have the books. There's a few classes you keep the books still.
Well, what else did you read, Micah?
Srini, I passed on that syllabus to you.
Yeah, no, I think I have it. It's good to hear it from you guys.
Yeah, I remember reading like Thich Nhat Hanh.
Yeah.
And then like the engaged Buddhism in the West, and then
there was one kind of reader book, I think, that had. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, there's 2. There's one in the
East
West
and West. Yeah. Big blue binded. Yeah. And then classic Hal books, we had Sekida, we had like Larry Rosenberg, just the classic Hal class books.
I think we read something about Ambedkar as well. Maybe
did we?
Yes, we read about Ambedkar. Yep.
I don't think I had the context back then. I would have looked at it with such different eyes now.
See, you were too young to take the course.
I was too young. Well,
it didn't do you.
But where was going to be my introduction? It's like I had to get it somewhere.
We're definitely going to read a lot of Ambedkar this summer. That's for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Hannah McLean is joining us. Hi, Hannah.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
So Hannah is the person we've been. It turns out that many people you're looking at on the screen have an interest in psychedelic psychotherapy.
Awesome.
In your absence, I've been describing in general terms the clinic that you've been putting together. So maybe maybe you can update us. And you haven't met Sandeep because Sandeep wasn't able to make that gig. And
We have met. We have met.
We did. We met after that because I was like, we got to meet. So we had a meeting. Yeah.
Bye, Micah. Micah had to leave. We're going to, next month, going to put together a virtual evening. Maybe we'll do it early evenings if Henry wants to come from England, so it won't be too late. On psychedelic psychotherapy, because so many contemplative studies concentrators are working in the field, which is cool. So Hannah, is the clinic ready to go? And you just
we're doing a bunch of different things. So I mean, mostly the clinic is ready to go, but we're doing our official like launch in July, just because COVID made it so it wasn't very fun to have a launch. But the MDMA won't be approved until a couple of years. So that's really when things really take off in the psychedelic way. I'm also getting involved in like some of the Oregon stuff. Like I might get to weigh in on some of the decisions around facilitator training in Oregon, and which I think will carry across the country with psilocybin. But yeah, so the clinic is in West Philly. There's 8 clinical rooms and 3 apartments in this like beautiful old Victorian that Penn Family Medicine worked out of for 20 years, and then they sold it, and it was zoned perfectly for what we needed. And we have 10 people that have trained with MAPS for MDMA, which is quite a lot because there's only a few hundred in the country that have trained with them. And I'm teaching classes too to people interested in psychedelic therapy. So we do 10-week courses. The first one's Intro to Psychedelics. And the second one is mindset and developing contemplative practices around psychedelic therapy, which Hal is going to come into for a couple of those. What I called his class Zen and the Art of Psychedelic Therapy. Because I can take the liberty and call it whatever I want.
Right, Zen and the Art of, right.
Zen and the Art of Psychedelic Facilitation. I don't know. I think it's really interesting actually that I don't think people will realize how important the contemplative piece is until they start facilitating or really like, have their first patient and realize like, oh my God, what if something goes wrong? And the only way you can really be grounded is if you have a grounding practice. So a lot of the people getting into psychedelic therapy now know nothing about psychedelics. They're therapists and counselors and MDs that just haven't taken psychedelics themselves, and just people that are like, this is cool, what do I need to know? And I think the most important thing is developing a contemplative practice to not have adverse experiences, but I think it will be interesting because I think it will only become more and more apparent as more people actually start doing it. And they realize like, oh shit, this is really important. So working on getting people to think about that, and also just like using mindfulness and contemplative practices to like navigate the ethics of psychedelic things going on.
Yeah, very important stuff.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm in upstate New York. I'm here for the night. So my family's like, you are not allowed on a Zoom call. We see you one night. So I might not be able to stay very long.
How far upstate?
Boyceville, which is like, I don't know upstate New York very well, but it's near Kingston, like 20 minutes away.
Yeah, so you're not far from the Hudson.
Right. So my parents from New Hampshire drove down and met me at my friend's house. And so it's a little upstate New York party. It's really pretty up here.
That's it. That's near where I grew up.
Cool.
Sandeep, how's the research that you're involved in at Hopkins? Does it in any way seg with anything you've heard people talking about? Sandeep?
It's the clinical trials for
your voice is coming.
Can you hear me?
Really. Keep going.
Kind of sound like a robot.
Oh,
Oh, now you're
Can we
good.
hear
Now
you
you're
yeah,
now?
definitely.
Oh yeah, now
Okay,
now,
it
now
definitely.
we can hear you. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm also out of town with family, and the internet here is a little wonky. But yeah, it definitely segues with things that people are saying. Like these are clinical trials for psychiatric conditions using psilocybin, but the actual method of giving people the psilocybin, and it's very much geared towards producing mystical experiences. Like that's what the preparation is. That's what the framing is. That's what the you know, and of course that's not what always happens for everyone. People have all kinds of different experiences, but um, that's kind of the model that they're going on. So yeah, I mean, it's like the perfect thing for contemplative studies, I think.
And you've developed a number, are they self-reporting measures that people respond to while they're in the condition?
No. Nobody's like filling out questionnaires during it, but they do it after.
Do it after, okay.
Yeah, there's several of those, but the main one that they use to look at that seems to be predictive of effects is it's like a mystical experience questionnaire. It's basically kind of like a rehashing of older ones.
Right.
They've like pared down over time.
So there's a psychologist and social worker named Eric Garland out of University of Utah who works with many of those measures that you are referring to, and some that you've developed, but not for psychedelic experience, for experiencing deeper dimensions of non-dual awareness through basically a modified mindfulness practice.
Do you know Ann Taves?
Ann Taves, yeah.
Yeah, so you emailed us about like the Eric Garland thing, and we were reading her paper at Journal Club, and she was like talking to us about it. So I'd heard about Eric Garland's work just the day before. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities. I think I haven't like read it in detail, but the non-dual awareness and the
right
conception of the mystical experience. So
right, right. So basically, he's looking at taking the measures for mystical experience because a lot of the experiences are very profoundly non-dual, and trying to use them to gauge whether his patients are having non-dual, almost like everyday non-dual experiences as a result of mindfulness practice, and having them turn towards, not to turn away from an increasing sense of space and opening up and a deeper level of awareness arising just through regular mindfulness practice, which is what MBSR they get very nervous with that because it almost seems religious, and they're not quite comfortable with crossing that boundary. In fact, they're very uncomfortable even getting close to it. So he has them focus on what he calls savoring positive non-dual experiences and experiences of bliss that come about in everyday life. Well, but to recognize them, just to begin to start recognizing them. And he's had a lot of success treating opioid addiction. That's where he's gotten his big grants for non-dual awareness from.
I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more too. Maybe you can track down some of that learning more and teach it in my class.
Yeah, well, actually, I've got some of his articles
Nice.
that I can't put them in the chat because that's too much coordination from one side of my computer to the other. I'm afraid I'll lose the rest of you, but I'll write myself a note to send you all basically links to Garland's published articles.
Yeah, there's been so many different great resources. I wonder if there's a way we can all like pool it together. I don't know, maybe like a shared doc or something, perhaps.
That's a great suggestion. You want to put it together, Case?
I'll try.
Whatever you suggest.
Yeah, I could just make a Google Doc, right? And then like
yeah,
add it to the chat.
Yeah,
Would that work?
I don't function with Google Docs very well.
If someone
I mean,
else
you can
like
just you
better,
can email it out, you know, like if you want to, Hal, if you want to send me whatever you want in the Google Doc. I think Google Docs is a really good place to keep everything though. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to just get together some of the information. I'm really interested in like the dual, the relative practices in the Tibetan traditions to go along with psychedelics, which I've been trying to get Hal on board with since 2012 or something.
That's why we sent you to Nepal.
I know it's true. He's like, I don't know, I do Zen. You go do your thing. But I think it'd be cool to just start pulling together the info and like tracking what we do know so far.
I just dropped in the chat if people are interested, and Taves. Basically, when we were talking to her, she made the point that these mystical, these questionnaires or conceptions we're using of mystical experiences bake in like positivity, like they're positively connoted, and kind of misses the fact that, you know, like these dark night experiences, like you can have these non-dual experiences that are quite negative. And it's kind of looking at them again, it's actually true. Like the way that we've conceptualized it, these are positive mystical experiences to the exclusion of negative ones. So it's kind of
right. And what is like a bad trip and what's like a good bad trip, right? If you're having I think I'm extremely interested in that. Like you can go into some darkness and that's okay. And then you can go into some darkness and it's re-traumatizing and actually sets you back. And like, at what point can you predict like what direction you're going in? Yeah. And like, how do you help someone pull out of it if it's like in the bad way? So I imagine that there could be some like informing of each other with that too. You know, like what is like when the bad re-traumatizing experiences, like what's the earliest you can, and is it like a falling apart? Is it a opening up? Like what's the earliest you can predict it's the wrong one?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So Sandeep, is it most of the research on with PTSD? Because that surprises me as someone who's totally naive to this field of research. For the exact reason, I would have thought, from what I know of PTSD, I think psychedelics would be definitely something you would not give to someone with PTSD.
The studies there are no psilocybin studies for PTSD. That's planned. I'm a little afraid of that study, to be honest.
Okay.
Exactly for that possibility.
But wouldn't it like also offer up like the best opportunity to like rewire the brain and like kind of tap into that? I mean, it definitely is. You could probably tap into some scary things, but like,
yeah,
it's almost like you have to go through the darkness kind of like to get through it type of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely talked to people who've like treated their PTSD quite successfully, like with ayahuasca.
Like, because personally, like I've treated like, no, I mean like certain levels of like PTSD, like with psilocybin, like in like personal use with a therapist, like not psychedelic assisted therapy, which is why I'm so interested in it. But yeah, it is interesting when you like bring it into a clinical setting and it's like you have to have all these regulations and follow it to a T, and how that it's really interesting to hear it from like the citizen science like point of view versus like the clinical science point of view.
Yeah, I definitely think there's potential there, but people have to know what they're doing. They have to be careful about it. I mean, not everyone in these trials does well. I mean, and so there can sometimes be like a bit of a cavalier attitude about psychedelics, and this is going to be really good for everyone. And like, there should be some thought, like, this is where like we really need more clinicians in this field. Like, obviously we need people who are knowledgeable about psychedelics. We need people who are knowledgeable about mysticism, but like, yeah, I mean, there should be like a good mixture of expertise, I think. And PTSD in particular is like a condition that people should be particularly mindful of the possibility of harm and re-traumatizing. In a way that I think is less likely with OCD, or less likely, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Has anyone like researched David Treleaven's trauma sensitive mindfulness work? that it's really, he has a whole book. Willoughby Britton actually wrote the foreword of it. But yeah, she gave me that book when I was in her meditation and brain class, and it, like, from a personal experience, it helped me a lot through, basically I was like getting re-traumatized during contemplative practices, and it helped me to work through that trauma and to make sense of my experience. It was a really interesting semester to like study something that was like so personally affecting me at the same time. But the book, he talks a lot about the window of tolerance, and like with these contemplative practices and like with an opening up to like past traumatic experiences, like staying within that window of tolerance and working with someone, if you're out of that window of tolerance, who can help regulate your nervous system to stay in that safe zone. But I thought it was a really helpful book for anyone who is a practitioner or a teacher of mindfulness, because when trauma comes into the situation, it just is it's almost like a completely different approach sometimes, which is what Hannah was talking about of, you know, like, where is that like line of like, when you get re-traumatized, like actually don't go there, like back off type of thing. It's really interesting. But that book, highly recommend if anyone's interested.
What book was it? Can you?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you.
The conversation about like positive framing is really interesting. I'm not on the clinical side, so I'm really curious about some of the conversations y'all are having. But in implementation in various spaces, I find like that's one of the trickiest things to explain. And that having gone through contemplative studies, I'm like, oh my God, like no one else has gone through contemplative studies. So, you know, you're making me think of like the context of even trying to go through this clinical process for a lot of these things is bringing in old indigenous known healing devices that have been written out of legality and clinical knowledge, right? So it's like, how do we bring that in a way that works while also being critical and self-aware of like, you know, a lot of the language that we have to use now and kind of reframe is also the language that's legally and clinically written out a lot of these perspectives. So it's like the same conversation, mindfulness and all these other spaces of like, how do we actually bring the baby and like throw the bathwater where necessary and all those questions. So I'm really curious as to, yeah, what y'all are thinking on that line. Super tricky on my implementation.
Indy, I think that's actually like one of the biggest questions that I think about the most when like psychedelic research and how it's coming more like into mainstream Western medicine, and how like I vent about this a lot. I'm like oh, bye.
Bye.
Bye, sweetie.
Of how like personally how I see psychedelics and how it's been used in indigenous cultures for so long, like it just doesn't fit into the Western science framework. So like that to me is like the really interesting piece of this whole thing, is like we're trying to fit like a practice into a model that is like outdated, and it's almost like we need to like create a whole new model to fit this practice that people have known have worked for like a long time. And so that's where I think is like it's quite a challenge, and it's kind of just like I don't know how it's going to be done, of like doing it respectfully as well. And like, yes, psilocybin, well, especially like psilocybin and ayahuasca, like these are chemicals and they're medicines, but they're also like plants, and they're also been used for medicine like by cultures like for years. So it's like, how do we honor that? I think that's like very important, because it's not just another drug that can be mass produced. Well, it can be, but like I don't want it to be, at least, or at least I'm afraid that it's going to start to be seen that way, like in our capital.
Yeah, that's kind of one. Oh, sorry, I didn't.
No, yeah, yes.
One of the things that I see that like in a concrete way is just like representation. So like how many, it's not that the knowledge has been killed, the knowledge is still out there, but like ayahuasca is one place I've seen it, where ayahuasca knowledge had actually been almost like killed in the process of commercializing it. And so now if you want to do a ayahuasca process, you would go to upstate New York and do it with someone who is from America. And like, not that you can't transmit that knowledge, but in that process, I'm like, that's interesting that you didn't think to go and involve the people who have been working with it for hundreds of years in any of this research at all, or something like that. So I think that's all the kind of stuff that we don't always think about, but it's also partly interesting as we're doing this Same goes for yoga and various other things, which is really interesting.
I think it's also interesting that like so much of the representation is like people in South America that are still using the medicines, and it's like a lot harder to find people that are North American because like this country squashed it quicker, you know, and just like in my work and classes, finding representation that's not only, you know, Indigenous people who have used the medicine, but also like Indigenous Native Americans who are still, you know, it's a terrible history, but getting that input. One person, Kevin, came into our class and like was telling, he does peyote in the Navajo Nation, and he said, you know, what's really sad is that I feel like now there's so much trauma in our communities, and there's so much more trust in the medical world than the native healers, that we almost like need you guys to come in and do like psilocybin with our people, because they'll like the young people will trust you more, which is very complicated, but also like, you know, maybe most effective. And he was like, can we try and collaborate on that? And I was like, oh my God, there's so many levels of like ethical dilemmas there, but you know, it's something that kind of needs to be discussed.
So I mean, I've seen parallel things. Probably the most striking example is John Kabat-Zinn being invited to a Chinese Chan monastery to teach them MBSR, or the fact that, you know, at this conference that I helped Mind and Life run in Kyoto in the spring, in August of 2018, it turns out that many more young people are drawn to MBSR and mindfulness practices than they are to Zen. We were on the grounds of a Zen monastery.
Right, because it's been like marketed in this like very specific way. Yeah.
But at some point, these are different things too. I mean, MBSR is not Zen.
Right.
Like it transforms into, maybe it's inspired by it, but at some point it just becomes its own thing.
Same with like yoga in today's day. Like it's not what yoga is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because I'm like, I didn't study too much, but I'm fourth generation from one of the oldest yoga schools in the world, but it, in my lifetime, has died as yoga has become popular. And the Yoga Health Institute is no longer competitive. But when I was growing up talking about the marketing, like yoga's not cool. My grandma made me do it, but no one was doing it. They were trying to like be hip and American. And only when they started doing yoga in American TV, it was super interesting that it's not like yoga came back. It's that yoga got like reshaped and re-imported. And so exactly what you're saying. So that's kind of where I'm also sensitive and being like, whoa, that was fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. Because in the same move that we like brought it into the system, we're like, well, to bring it into the system, we have to make it profitable. And all this other shit, like 7/8 of it that talks about like right action and right speech, like, no, let's just keep like, what can we sell? And so, you know, even in the clinical side and seeing how that actually filters down to implementation. Mindfulness was introduced in Philadelphia School District this year. And that was a situation, a whole other conversation. But I'm like, oh, wow. Like starting as an educator being like, wow, how can we bring mindfulness into schools? Being like, wow, it was very easy to, very easily slipped out of anyone being able to plan for those things until it was just happening.
Guys, I'm gonna go and help my family make dinner and be collaborative in nature rather than be on Zoom. But I'm totally down to collaborate with all of you, and I feel like there's a lot of really cool possibilities here.
I gotta do the same actually, but I likewise echo that sentiment and be very much interested in touch.
Thanks for being awesome.
Yeah, I'll be in touch about more stuff.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you both.
Sounds good.
Yeah, likewise.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, hey, Bonzo. Hey, big Bonzo.
Oh, the laugh.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting discussion.
I feel like I'm back at Brown.
It's only been not even a semester and I've missed it.
Oh.
Mostly the discussions,
Yeah,
that second
yeah.
person experience. Greatly missed.
I do feel like I have a really appropriate like prop for this discussion. I don't know if y'all can see that.
Yes. Is that a skateboard?
Yeah, it's a mushroom skateboard. A friend gave me for my 18th birthday. I've got a new mushroom skateboard coming tomorrow in the mail.
Cool.
Hal, are you in a different office than you used to be? Are you still in the roof? Because it doesn't look like your old office.
Actually, I haven't been in that building since March of last year.
Oh, of course.
This is my home office.
Okay, gotcha. I was gonna say it doesn't look like that cool little, you know.
But in any case, I'm not in that.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense.
I finally.
We all have moments where we forget about the pandemic.
Enough objectionable people retired so that I was able to move up in the hierarchy of the aged, if not the wise, at in the religious studies department, and my office space dramatically improved, and now I have this beautiful office which I used to go in when Barney Twist back in the day. This is before all of your times because Barney left in 2001. Barney and I used to team teach, and we used to plan courses in this big, beautiful office that he had. And I finally, by hook or by crook, I'm now back in that office after many years. Barney was my one constant supporter, just because we had overlapping interests, I suppose, back in the 90s. And so I'm back, and this is the one office in the building now that has its own private bathroom, and a working bathtub. So I don't know if you've ever seen Marat Sade. Does anybody catch that reference? No?
Classic Hal references.
I think I'll leave you to discover that on Google. Marat Sade was a famous Broadway play about the Marquis de Sade and persecution of Jean-Paul Marat during the French Revolution. Anyway, you kind of have to dig it out to catch my bathtub reference.
So anyway. We can do some Wim Hof training in your office now?
I don't know. Wim Hof.
The Iceman. Dude's wife died, and then he's just like, F it, and he just took his clothes off and started running around icebergs. And it's now developed into something like through that process. He was kind of like, oh, wait, there's some serious stuff going on with what I'm doing with my breathing and my control of my body temperature and all this stuff. So now I think it's just another contemplative type of, I don't know how exactly you define it, but as far as I can tell, it's another contemplative practice that people use cold water to experiment with.
Okay, so that's one I've got to Google.
Yeah, it's honestly pretty interesting. I did a freediving course and we worked with like ice water on our face, and it's amazing how it like can really dramatically like impact your nervous system. And that's kind of what he talks about a lot, is just like shocking your nervous system and then working with the breath to like get into like meditative states. So yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, a guy joined the hockey club who actually teaches Wim Hof, and it doesn't have to be done with cold water. That is obviously a facilitative like context for it to happen. But he does a lot of sessions that are just the breathing, and I did it. And honestly, like coming from contemplative studies at Brown, it just felt like expedited kind of oxygen withdrawal. To be honest, it's just a lot of really intense, quick breathing. And it just felt like, yeah, you're kind of getting yourself out of breath, basically. But that was my experience. I'm sure like a lot of people get kind of, as you do, you know, with meditation practice, you just kind of change your mind state, get more focused, these kind of things. And yeah, I think a lot of people go to it because, kind of piggybacking off that last conversation, it's kind of like a westernized framework for this ability for us to change our mind state, which is kind of ultimately what all of this is about. So It's really interesting. I'm going to explore it more with him. The guy's really cool. Obviously, with pandemic again, it's a default excuse, but it's functional excuse as well. I haven't been able to engage with him as much, but we plan to actually work together on some stuff, which should be cool.
I mean, it does bring up, I mean, returning to the discussion from before, I mean, the whole issue of, where MBSR ends, where Zen begins. If you're going to be taking a contemplative substance out of its cultural context, and bringing it so that it can really help many more people, what's the role of science in doing that? What's the role of commodification? How do you avoid commodification? How do you establish scientific legitimacy sufficiently so you can bring it out into the world? I mean, John Kabat-Zinn faced this with MBSR, and it's continues to be problematic. And it's true that mind and body are unified, and so we're kind of trying to almost approach it from either from the mind side or from the body side. And it really needs to be done from both together, both subjective and objective, and inner and outer. And that's the real challenge, because we could probably do it from one side and we can probably do it from the other, but can we do it from both?
Kendo, I want to say that that's almost the core of what I learned through contemplative studies and what I was really impressed and continue to be, because it's not that you were like, now everyone teach meditation. You're like, see what happens when you try to study meditation, is almost how you framed it. You're like, and so, yeah, I really feel that.
I think the challenge for contemplative practice, and also for what we've been talking about with psychedelic psychotherapy, MDMA and psilocybin. I mean, can they be used responsibly? I mean, they obviously have neurochemical and physiologically measurable effects, but the way in which the psychological and the physiological merge together is really essential. And if you only look at it from the physiological standpoint, you're going to miss out something really important piece. And it's the psychological standpoint that's linked with this larger cultural context very often.
Hal, what you're describing is very much related to transpersonal. Having just had to read that book to apply, I read a book on shadows and light. It's the theory behind transpersonal psychology. But what you're speaking to reminds me a lot of holism, and holism is very much emphasized in transpersonal theory, and it's almost, having read that, silly to think that we can just view the psychological, and just look at the physiological, and seems really naive to think that they're not connected. And it's almost it's laughable, especially if you look at Western psychology or things like that, and a lot of Western approaches to medicine. It's how it's just, yeah. And that's why I one of the reasons why I appreciate contemplative studies so much, is because it brings that together in an academic setting where usually it's so mind focused, and a lot of the other stuff just kind of gets brushed aside.
I mean, this is a continuing challenge in developing contemplative studies or contemplative science, or contemplative research. So I've been working with a small a group of people to try to develop a new professional association in contemplative research, and trying to be very insistent that the humanities not be ignored, because it's been dominated. I mean, like mind and life, and Juan, you know this probably more than most everybody here, the extent to which the kind of scientific perspective has dominated mind and life, to the exclusion of a humanities perspective, and it's been a tough fight. But the ironic thing is that what I've discovered is scientists are more open to the humanities than vice versa. Humanists are really resistant to scientific knowledge. it's a non-starter. So it's a challenge. And then there's the social sciences as well, which are separate from the humanities and separate from clinical science or basic science.
Hal, who's the, not that this of course matters to people who are used to having a contemplative studies major, but for those who are in the pre-times, who is head of religious studies right now?
Mark Cladis, whom you may remember.
I do remember Mark Cladis. I don't think I ever took a class with him, but I do remember that.
Yeah.
And is Willoughby still operating out of Britain Labs?
It's kind of shrunk.
Out of Cheetah House, I mean?
Yeah, and they're doing a lot of data analysis now, and a lot of interviews. So they don't really, I mean, I don't think they take students anymore, or if they do, it's greatly reduced.
Is anybody else here has worked with Willoughby?
I took her meditation and brain class last semester, and just because I was also like going through personal stuff, and like she's like also a trained counselor, she'd be like, okay, like not as a teacher, and just like talking to her in that way. That's my only experience with her, but it's new because it was just last semester. But she did talk a lot about Cheetah House.
Juan and I used to be in the lab.
I used to live in Cheetah House. Yeah, I lived there for a semester. After I came back from India. Anybody else here do the Antioch program, by the way? Anybody know? I used to be a bunch of like contemplative. There used to be like a good contingent. Like every year there'd be 1 or 2 people from Brown who do the Antioch Buddhist Studies program. You go to Bodh Gaya in India. That's, I highly recommend that. Not that applies to anyone here since we're all probably in college. Yeah, I came back, lived at Cheetah House. And at that time, the Britain lab was like very hip among the contemplative studies kids. So there was like good 15 or more like undergrads all involved in that.
Yeah, that was before Jared.
That was before what again?
Jared.
Oh, so Jared Lindahl, is that right? I just knew him as like a scholar person. I didn't know him personally.
Right.
So is he now involved at Brown somehow?
He will be married.
Okay, yes, I knew that. Or I thought I knew that. Okay. So I see. So Jared now made it.
They co-teach the class meditation and brain together, which is like super fascinating because you get the science, psychological counselor side of like clinician side of Willoughby, and then his humanities back and like religious background. It's a really great interdisciplinary class. Like more classes should be taught like that, to be honest, especially at Brown.
How many contemplative studies majors are there this year?
Well, we just graduated 11, but that was from 2 classes. So really, there's maybe 5 or 6 a year.
Yeah.
But we're up to 41 since Henry first signed up, and then we've got another maybe half dozen. With I think this year's freshman class, we're going to get maybe more than that. Because there's some really interested freshmen coming out of Intro to Contemplative. And I did an Intro to Zen course last fall. Some of them were in that. So Kylie, you know some.
I know exactly like people who you're talking about. They very much are going to be contemplative studies majors. It's inevitable.
And that's actually
from the university. Are there any like concerns like towards the longevity of contemplative?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. They're so the fundamental challenge is how to continue it past my retiring or dropping dead from overwork, whichever comes first.
Take care of yourself, Hal.
Anne's doing her best to keep me alive.
And take care of yourself too.
Yeah, definitely.
Of course, we actually, losing you is worse than you losing me. Anyways, I'm not planning on retiring or dying anytime soon, but you never know about these things.
Not unless I kill you.
Thank God you moved to the great white north of Dudley, Massachusetts. The frozen wastelands. Dog team is what they used to get around Dudley.
That's right.
So, I mean, yeah, we're going to have a curriculum review coming up this fall. And I think one of the issues, we've got a great program and we have so many wonderful courses, but many of them are taught by visitors. And in terms of core faculty who are baked into the the structure of Brown, and it's like with tenurable positions, we have a lot of people on the fringe, but nobody in the heart. And so it's just been really difficult to get, because contemplative studies falls between, or it's multidisciplinary. And so it's kind of a secondary or tertiary interest for a lot of people, but it's a core interest for me and people like Srini and Larson and Sarah Lazar and Willoughby and Jared. And to some extent, Judd and Eric. So, I mean, that's the core really, and that's big enough for a whole department. I mean, there's some departments that only have, 5 people. And I've raised enough money for us to do this for another 4 or 5 years. And I continue to do that, but it's getting, for example, when I retire, it would be great to have a contemplative humanities chair, or a position that would be in philosophy or religious studies or classics or one of the humanities departments, East Asian studies. And doing that is a very difficult thing. You've got to raise the money, and that it takes, for a senior chair, like a fully tenured chair, it's $4 million endowment. For lesser, it's 3. And then you've got to develop, you've got to find a humanities department that would be willing to share somebody with contemplative studies. And that's a whole other, and then you've got to, let's say, I've been training Srini and Larson both. And so either of them could take over for me. That's not a problem. It's getting them hired on something that's not soft money. That's the challenge. So I can raise money for them for maybe another half decade. I probably already have, but they're not permanent positions. And even if I had a permanent position, would religious studies hire Srini or Larson, even though they're both super qualified, because they've been contaminated by association with contemplative studies. What's the contamination? Practice. Basically, doing practices in the classroom. Critical first person, they think, is just, as was said to me 20 years ago when I first started doing this, teaching meditation in the classroom is no different than forcing your students to get down on their knees and accept Jesus as their savior. And as ridiculous as that sounds, these are well-educated people. They actually believe this. I mean, anyway. So those are the challenges. Henry, you signing off?
No, I have to sign off. I'm just, I wanted everyone to know that I'm gonna add any last emails to the doc. So if anybody wants me to add them, feel free to share now.
Great.
Yeah, I do also have to go because it's nearly midnight. So.
Really late for you.
I'm also heading out.
It was so great to see you all and to meet new people. And yeah, thank you so much.
This is lovely.
Delightful
Likewise.
to see you, Henry and Casey. That was right, and you both were on the trip. The trip.
That was a trip.
It was one of those.
Yeah, it was quite a trip. A lot of emotions on that trip. But I was gonna say, please invite me to the group that's gonna be talking about psychedelics.
Yes,
I'd love to go to that.
Yeah, second that. That's lovely that we're gonna do this.
Yeah, we'll do this sometime next month, June, right? That's next.
Awesome.
Month.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Anne and Hal, for organizing this. It was really wonderful.
No worries.
Good to see you, Case.
Bye.
I'm also going to head out. It was great meeting new faces, and thank you for a wonderful conversation and for organizing this. Yes, I'll talk to you all soon. I'll see you. Well, I won't see you tomorrow, but I'll be with you in spirit, Professor Roth and Anne, for ceremony tomorrow.
We'll be with you.
Yes.
Great graduation ceremony.
Yes, it's exciting.
Hey.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Yeah, and I'll sign up as well. Anne, thank you so much for this, and Hal.
It was great seeing you.
Hal, I will get that stuff over to you ASAP, by the way, and we'll get going with that.
Just let me know a deadline.
Yeah, we'll do. Bye, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Take care, Henry. Great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Say hi to your mom and dad.
Will do. Bye.
Hal, are there still grants for summer retreats or things like that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
We still have our contemplative practice grants. Yep. And they're really lucrative if you're a concentrator. It's I think, what is it, $350 for non-concentrators and
$750 for concentrators. Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Juan, we haven't had much of a chance to talk to you about like culture shock. I mean, has it been difficult to reintegrate from Colombia?
Yeah, I feel like the first month I was feeling that. I was feeling the transition. Especially I arrived in February, so it was cold and COVID was strong here. People were still very locked in. While in Colombia, people were a little bit relaxed at that moment. But yeah, it's been an adjustment. I feel adjusted now. So it's interesting to like look back and see what adjusted. Yeah, in the moment, it's been an intense semester. So I feel like that just like captured all of my attention and energy the last 2 months, and that just like that drove my adjustment back into life here. So I'm waiting. We have like 3 more weeks left, and I'm waiting for that to just take a breath and like. I feel like I left my body behind 3 months ago, and I needed to like catch up with where I am now. Yeah.
So maybe not all of you know, Juan spent the last 2 years basically in Colombia working with the FARC. A lot of former, I guess, do they still identify as FARC members?
Yeah, they identify as a FARC political party now.
Oh, they have a political party. Oh.
Yeah, part of the peace building process involved them redesigning themselves as a political party. Because to them it was a peace agreement, not a like loss of the conflict. So one of the terms that they fought for was representation in the political structure. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, and so I feel like I'm still doing that work. That work is continuing. I'm working on getting the pieces of the puzzle right so that it can continue while I'm here. And I think, yeah, in the time there, it feels like I managed to do enough team building so that the people are there to hold the work with like me supervising and helping from afar. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely still, I think I'm still seeing if the puzzle pieces are going to fall correctly.
Right.
One that's super interesting. If I can ask, I don't know if I just missed it. What specifically are you doing with them?
It's a mental health support intervention. It's like a peace building / mental health support program. So they signed a peace agreement like 5 years ago now. So they are returning back to civilian life after having lived many years fighting. And returning to a society that doesn't love them in a lot of places and in a lot of form. And yeah, it's a rough relationship. And there's active, political and social persecution still. So they're both kind of going through like, they have the trauma of what they lived. They're going through like new trauma of adjusting to a new life and in a harsh environment. So we did kind of just some contemplative practice-based program like kind of just basic mental health support and some like liberatory pedagogy work to kind of deepen their, I mean, they already have a strong liberatory political mission. I think we're kind of just trying to deepen it on the kind of embodied emotional side of it. They're very good at the logical, like, political side of it, but they kind of inherited a very disembodied way of doing political work.
Disembodied in what sense? It's very interesting.
It's well Western, you know. It's a debate and right, you know. It's writing and not, you know, not engaging with the felt sense of systems of power, of how they affect us and how we need to undo that internally and not just externally. Yeah.
That's clear.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that, you know, it shows up a lot, for example, in their reconciliation work. They have some regularly, they meet with communities where harm was caused. And they, you know, try to, you know, express, you know, seek some type of reparation there. And so far, a lot of that has been kind of the, you know, what are the actions we take, and almost completely neglecting, you know, how do I internally feel this forgiveness and receive forgiveness, and how do I go through that internal process of reconciliation, and of, you know, to then really meet with the other in that space.
So there are parallels with Northern Ireland and with South Africa, it seems to me. But I don't know how much inner work was ever done in Northern Ireland. And I really don't know enough about South Africa to know if any of this inner work that you're talking about, which is absolutely essential, has been done.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's a good question. In kind of in how they built the peace agreement here, they looked a lot at those two processes. I know they looked a lot at the South African and Irish processes, but that was more for, like, yeah, the political side of the peace agreement. Yeah. And now, yeah, I'm adjusting to life here. I'm in the, like, months. I'm in my first year of my PhD, and I'm in the months of, like, in the next 2-ish months, I'm supposed to be kind of deciding what my question will be. So it's like a fun challenge, but I think, yeah, I feel good options showing up.
Good.
Yeah.
And are you, like, back now, or is your PhD, or that's what you mean? You're not sure if the pieces will come together in one place or not?
No, he's in a program.
Yeah, I'm in a program. Yeah.
No, but I mean, like, with the Columbia, like the FARC work.
Yeah, I think something I'm trying to do with my PhD is seeing if there can be a bridge. My PhD is gonna be like mouse level and maybe mouse level systems neuroscience. Like, what are the circuits in the brain that change when someone develops trauma or depression? I think that's the type of question I want to be asking, and it'll have that bridge with the work I'm doing there. So that maybe I can be, like, looking at that at the mouse level and doing this, like, implementation level work in Columbia. Yeah, I think hearing everyone's doing a lot of applied work, a lot of, like, clinical work, which I think I'm like, I haven't stopped wrestling with the question of kind of how my path will continue to incorporate that work, because the questions are related, but I'm asking them in the mouse. And so I'm always kind of wondering, you know, how can I make sure that the healing work, or at least the contemplative mentorship work, is part of my path there.
So Ann and I just met last month, or was it a month before? Somebody who part of whose work, she's at Yale in the psychology department. She describes her work as social neuroscience, and I'll send you her links. So she's
Joy Hirsch.
Nope, that's not her name. And you remember the Sarah Shaw's partner. So we'll have another, also we'll do a day-long Thai shamatha retreat again. We did one. So we've been, and you're all welcome to join, by the way. I don't know if you picked up on these invitation messages, but we'll be starting this again on May 10th, something we call virtual contemplative mentors in residence. And so there's sessions on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from noon to 1. So the Monday session is Sarah Shaw, who's written a bunch of books on Pali meditation.
Well, excuse me for interrupting. It's Molly Crockett. Is the woman from Yale. Excuse me.
Molly Crockett. And they're both part of a Thai-based shamatha tradition, very different from the Vipassana traditions that have become very popular and supposedly representative exclusively of the Theravada approaches in the West. This is a really interesting structured practice that I feel works very well with Zen practice. So I've been drawn to it anyway. So the two of them taught for us a day-long retreat. So we'll send this out again to our alums, and we're going to do another one in June. It'll be on a Saturday. Also next week, just by the way, in case you've got a free Saturday, the Zen abbot who teaches for us on Fridays as a virtual contemplative mentor in residence, Masaki Matsubara, the Rinzai-ji Zen Center and Mount Baldy Zen Centers are sponsoring him to do a day-long sit, again, virtually, that I'll be helping him with. And that will be from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. next Saturday. Well, I'll ask Ann to send out notices. Anyway, Molly Crockett does social neuroscience at Yale. And it's not neuroscience exactly, but it kind of recognizes that neuroscience doesn't only take place in here or someplace that's in here, that it's very interactive. And I think her work might be interesting to you and vice versa.
Joy Hirsch actually does a lot of social neuroscience stuff at Yale, dual brain functional near infrared spectroscopy. And I worked with her for like 4 or 5 years, and we did a drumming study, and people drumming back and forth to each other while simultaneously getting image with functional near infrared. So you had 2 people with caps on. It's not like 2 different like spaceships in an fMRI where you can't actually ecologically like validly interact. And because 2 people like staring at like the IAPS, the super emotional pictures, you know, like sex scenes or violent scenes or people skiing down a mountain or whatever, and people would drum back and forth, and like we'd correlate that with the like different valences and arousal levels of the emotion. We saw, yeah, it was cool stuff. But she does a lot of like dual brain simultaneous social neuroscience stuff at Yale.
Cool. So they undoubtedly know each other, and maybe Joy Hirsch recruited Molly Crockett. Molly Crockett was in England for quite some time, and this is just her 2nd year, I think, at Yale. That's maybe how she knows Sarah, because Sarah's in Oxford. So Sarah comes in from Oxford. Masaki's now in New York, but he was coming in from Japan. Wednesday's Larson Di Fiore, whom many of you know, I think. He teaches Qigong. He's become a Qigong master. And we also have this vital energy project in Kathy's honor, Kathy Kerr's honor, that we've been pursuing. And if you'd like to be added to the mailing list, we've had a bunch of Thursday evening lectures in that series, some of which are online, and we can send that information out too.
Yeah, I'd love to be connected to that.
What do you mean vital energy stuff? Like what's it about? And is it more like research discussion or like practice together? Or?
Not practice together. Looking at Steph Jones and Chris Moore, whom Juan certainly knows. I don't know if you know them, Rahul, but they're in
Chris Moore I know in Euro at Brown.
And Steph really kind of took over Kathy's lab. Well, I mean, Chloe took it over, but I mean, Steph was the head, and she's got a lot invested in it. And we put together, we brought in basically, let's see, theorists of Qi. So this wonderful Chinese medical, I don't know what to call him, a PhD and a clinician who set up a classical Chinese medical training program in Portland, Oregon. It's been around for about 20 years. Heiner Fruhoff, he gave a lecture like on the history of Qi. And then we had David Palmer and Nancy Chun talk about Qigong in the late 20th century and Qigong fever in China. And then we had Ken Cohen.
And a roundtable discussion too, Hal, in between.
A roundtable discussion. So we're thinking about, you know, it kind of parallels some of the ways in which there's a challenge to bringing indigenous peoples' psychedelic practice into a clinical context. We're looking at the indigenous peoples of China's vital energy and medicine practice, and whether that can fit at all harmoniously into a Western scientific model. So our big picture is, can we come up with types of research that we can do to mutually support one another? Or are we talking about simply parallel systems which don't have really significant intersections?
Now, this just came into my mind, if I can ask. This is different, but somewhat similar, because even in China with the Communist Party for the last several decades, similar negotiations have had to be made, right, about how much spirit can come into the conversation. I wonder if there are connections or things we can learn from that, because like Falun Gong as an extreme example, right? They're like, no, you must do Tai Chi without talking about the spirit. They're like, no, we can't. And you're like, no, you must or we'll kill you. And like, that's one extreme example, but I wonder what kind of conversations happen there.
Interesting you should ask that question, Indy, because when I probably nobody picked up on this because it took me years to figure this out. There's a difference between classical Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese medicine. So traditional Chinese medicine is the post 1960s communist way to do classical Chinese medicine. And what it takes out of the picture, so it brings in some Western medicine, but what it takes out of the picture is the developing contemplative practice necessary for medical practitioners to be able to accurately perceive what is going on in the being with whom they're interacting. And so that contemplative practice is absolutely foundational to classical Chinese medicine. It doesn't fit in the Western scientific model, and hence in the Maoist or communist Chinese viewpoint. And it's been taken out. And so most everybody you will go to see now who practices Chinese medicine and most of the places where there's a place in Boston where you can do Chinese medicine, it's all traditional. So the one place I know of, and I think there's a place in Seattle also.
Yeah, David Carlson is in Seattle. I think he did that there.
Yes, David Heyrman.
Heyrman, yes, I apologize.
Yeah, he went to the one in Seattle, which actually was founded and developed and run by a member of my Zen Sangha. It's a small world in progressive spiritual circles in North America. Anyway, the Seattle people were trained in Portland. So Heiner is like the original, but also Falun Gong. I mean, yes, of course. I mean, the Chinese are worried about Falun Gong because they get too many people together, and there's a whole history of rebellions against the central government being mounted by religious organizations that got their shit together and organized on a mass level. So that makes them very nervous.
Al, do you mind if I ask about? So you mentioned Rinzai-ji and Mount Baldy. So are you still practicing kind of with that community? I talked to you a few years ago. You and I went to an Indian restaurant. the one on Thayer. I can't believe I'm forgetting what that place is called.
Kebab and curry. Oh, not just snacks.
Oh,
That's
or it
what
could be
Hal
multiple,
liked way
could
up
be
there.
multiple, but I'm guessing.
But it was not
that
just
on
snacks. If
Hope.
it was with
That
Hal,
on
it was
Hope,
not
my
just
mistake.
snacks. Oh.
But anyhow, and you at the time mentioned something, Hal, about going to or you were getting involved in some kind of Tibetan stuff or something.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm misremembering. As you can tell, I don't remember stuff very well, so I can't even remember the name of the restaurant that was on Thayer Street.
Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I have to say goodbye. My daughter has now called me twice. We're planning her wedding. That's how old I am. I have a daughter that's getting married. So as a matter of fact, Hal's going to officiate, I hope. So I have to go, but it was lovely seeing everybody.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Good to see you, and
congrats.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you later on, Hal, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely seeing everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Yeah, so Crispy, you went out to New Mexico, right, in 2011 or 2010?
Yeah, I went out to
2010.
New Mexico. I also did a retreat in LA. Rinzai once too.
At Rinzai, yeah. So I've yes, I there's nobody. Let's see, how can I put this? So I discovered a really profound meditation teacher actually through Mind and Life, because he would do some of he'd come to the summer research, and that's how I met him when Sasaki was still alive, named Tsukni Rinpoche. And he's the real deal. He's the only other person I've met in my life outside of Sasaki Roshi that I feel is genuinely fully awakened. And the thing that freaked me out is he's young. You know, he's a young man. He's probably not 50, but that's still young to me. So I'm used to, Sasaki Roshi died at the age of 107. So I'm used to my spiritual teachers being much older than me. So it felt weird. Yes, Tsukni Rinpoche, exactly.
How I wanted to, I think Rahul and I were both there. That SRI, something was incredible. I've been wondering recently, what the process is like to try to start practicing with them more regularly.
Well, he's got a website, and there's lots of he's got a lot of recorded materials, and you can sign up to be part of his sangha, and he's making plans to come back to the U.S. Get the year wrong. I don't think it's this year, but in 2022. I think it starts in the spring of 2022. But he gives online retreats. So in January, and his online retreats they're like 3 hours a day for like a week. And he gives basically talks and answers questions in the chat. There might be 1,000 people on that. So it's a little bit at a distance, but you can start really by going to his website and seeing what's there. There's a lot of material there. He's going to be back, I think, in California in April of 2022, and then he's got a lot of his followers live in Crestone, Colorado, and so he comes to Crestone for about a month every August. And so he's planning to be there in 2022, and he'll be back on the East Coast at Garrison in late October or November of 2022.
Cool.
So,
thanks. Yeah, I think I'm gonna follow these threads. I've always wanted to follow his practice a little bit more.
He's very impressive. And so Chris, Sasaki died in 2014. There's been a lot of conflict in the Sangha. I've somehow emerged. He made me his. I'm the chair of his teaching materials committee or publication committee, and I edited and partially translated one book of his, the first and only book of his teaching materials. And I'm just about finished with a second book. It's in we're editing the last 80 pages, doing serious copy editing, and but it's already it goes to the book designer and the printer in a month, so it'll hopefully be out in July. It's 35 Teisho's Dharma talks, translated by the same translator. And I've had to go back and retranslate a bunch of difficult sections that just impossible to catch. When you're, as you know, you tried translating, it's like, if you're on the spot and you're having it, you just can't wait to kind of grasp it all before you have to speak and translate, and then you're on to the next thing. And I guess you all know this because you all work in multiple languages, not just Chris, but there's that challenge of keeping the narrative going, keeping the flow going, while understanding enough to, so there's a lot of retranslation involved. But this book I've been working on for 7 years. Also, I just published another book, which just came out. It's called The Contemplative Foundations of Classical Taoism. This will come as no surprise to you all, because you've probably heard a lot of the ideas that are in the book. But this represents about 30 years of scholarship. And I've been working to put this compilation together for 7 years. Somebody came up with the idea. So it's kind of difficult to teach and to raise funds and to keep things running and then to write. So it's been a crazy 6 months or 8 months or whatever for everybody. I mean, it's been crazy in different ways. I mean, Rahil was right in a year ago when we got together. You were in the emergency room dealing with COVID cases, and that's unbelievable. And as you all know, it looked like up until the end of the year, when it looked like things were not going to get much better very quickly, and we were going to have to suffer another 4 years of he whose name shall go unuttered.
Hal, that's amazing. That's both books you've been working on for 7 years. This is like at the same time these huge journeys have come, and now you can chill for a little while. And like,
what's
your second book's
chill, metaphorically speaking.
How do you get writing done? What's your trick?
Oh, I'm trying to just what's my trick? Don't let up. Don't take your foot off the gas, except carve out a certain amount of time every day to actually take your foot off the gas. And then when you take it off, it's off. So, every night from 8 to 1, I don't work. But then the rest of the time.
From 8 p.m. to 1 a.m.?
Yeah, I don't work.
But then you work after 1 a.m.?
Well, I go to check the baseball scores, but then there's my email. And if there's an email that really needs to get done, so it's kind of like that.
Wow.
So, yeah. And the other thing is, if you can get a gig teaching meditation, that's great because it forces you to meditate. So between the virtual mentors, also you're all welcome to join. I'm going to continue my Tuesday, Thursday med labs as Zazen Kais. I call them Zen lunches. So I'll send you out notices of that. They'll be Tuesday, Thursday, noon to 1. So there's lots of noontime meditation possible. Your schedules are all probably whatever they are. So, but you're all always welcome to drop in for any length of time or whenever. So, you know, I'll send you out the links for that, as well as the mentors in residence, as well as the Mount Baldy Rinzai practice. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going on through either Mount Baldy or Rinzai. I've also got a Sangha seminar, the 6th one I've organized in 2 years, coming up first weekend in June. That's combined. It's kind of like the summer seminars in New Mexico, except it's virtual. Well, we started on Mount Baldy, but it's virtual now. And it's kind of the combination of practice and lectures. So this one's devoted to space, place, and breath. And Sarah Shaw is going to teach, and a Kyoto School Specialist is going to teach, and also Michelle Moore from Hawaii, who's like the most knowledgeable person on Rinzai Zen, is also going to teach. So that'll be June 4, 5, 6. So I'll send notices of all this stuff out. It's like life is good because it's interesting, and I get to, you know, I get to know all you and to see you from time to time, and you know, continue to discover more about myself in my interactions with my students. Always, you know, it's a great gig I've fallen into here. So
hey, I definitely do got to shift out, but it was so lovely to see you all. Chris, let's definitely hang out. Maybe the 3 of us. I don't know if you ever met Juan, but Juan is a quality human being who I love dearly. And yeah,
the Raheel stamp of approval.
And
Juan, are
Indy,
you
my
the person who said they were in Roxbury?
Yeah.
Okay, nice, cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hang out sometime.
Great. Yeah. We'll set something up, you know, I don't know, in the near future, maybe just by Zoom or something. But yeah, that sounds great.
Sounds good. And
Good to
Indy,
see
my
everybody.
family just moved to Hershey, Pennsylvania. So Philly will not be far from me. I will be making that trip now a little more often.
Aren't you
So
in Baltimore? So Philly's on the way.
oh wait, sorry, what'd you say?
Are you in Baltimore?
No. Sandeep.
No.
Sandeep's in Baltimore. You're
I'm
where are
in
you?
Boston area. I'm in
Oh, okay,
Somerville.
okay.
So yeah, I drive
One of
down
the
to
Boston
Hershey, but I'll hit up Philly on the way.
We've got
or
another concentrator coming to Philly. I'll connect you. Cooper Penner.
Cool.
What's Juan? You know Coop, right?
Yeah. What's he going to Philly for?
PhD in neuroscience at Penn.
Hell yes! Wow. No idea.
Yeah.
I need to connect with him. Okay. Yeah. Last time I talked to him, MD was still his question, but
nope.
Wow. He starts this fall.
Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah. Cool.
Chris,
you guys are
side note just on the chat.
Really wonderful to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah. Thank you, Hal. So good to see everyone.
I still read Inner Training. Yeah. I actually got it right over here. So. I return to that. I like it. I mean, I know you love the Zhuangzi and everything, but it's just the nice, simple poetry of those verses.
Well, thanks,
the way you translated it, it was clearly with a mind towards contemplative, you know, studies. So I've always treasured that book. So thank you. All right, take care, Hal.
Wonderful to see you all.
Bye, guys. Good to see you all.
All right, see y'all.
Indy, hi to your mom.
Will do.
Chris,
and say hi to the rest of the Rots as well.
Sounds good.
I will for sure.
And hopefully I didn't misgenre your band, Indy.
Oh no, there's no genre. It's a project in decolonizing, trying to label what genre it is.
Okay. Good.
I honestly, it's so fun. Someone just did an interview and someone's like, "Why did you get interested in rock music?" I'm like, "Let's just talk about what you said for the next 20 minutes."
Great. That's great. All right, good to see you guys both. Take care.
Bye everyone. Nice to see you.